Glad that you're here today. We're going to do a little practice together, but first I wanted to just take a couple of moments to talk about mindfulness and reconciliation. Here in the US, anyway, the nation obviously has been through a great deal of division and anger and fear, as well as excitement and change. And I think it's about time that we consider, in light of the mindfulness practice, the idea of reconciliation and healing. If we take mindfulness seriously, then at some point we're going to come face to face with the need to be reconciled to ourselves and to one another. Because mindfulness is really about paying attention in the present moment, yes, but it's a certain kind of attention. And that attention, in order for it to be mindfulness, requires that it be non-judgmental attention or awareness. So it's really through the practice of non-judgmental awareness that I think reconciliation can happen on many different levels, nationally, internationally, and very personally. In fact, if we don't practice reconciliation in our most personal relationships, we'll likely find it very difficult to practice it on any other level, national or international. Probably heard the line, remember what the spiritual teacher Ram Dass said, if you think you're enlightened, go spend a week with your family. And I think that really speaks to the challenge, in our most intimate relationships. Sometimes it's hard to find reconciliation. So whether we seek it with our family or our next door neighbor or the boss, politicians, or our fellow citizens, mindfulness can help us to set aside judgment, at least for the moment, so that we might begin to develop goodwill and compassion towards others. And I'm not pretending that the injury to me is not real. I'm just working with the courage to hold reconciliation and goodwill in my heart, in the hopes that it will begin to transform my heart and transform everything that drives my resistance to be reconciled, my fear, my hatred, my desire, whatever it might be. If we find a way as a nation in the US and in the world, really, to be reconciled to one another, and we start with the condition of my own heart, then perhaps my life can contribute to, in a substantial way, to the healing of the world. That's my hope for me, and that's my hope for all of us. And so the path to reconciliation, I think, begins with us seeing that each and every person has experienced some amount of suffering and pain. And also to see that each and every person carries within them goodness and beauty, though it may be hidden from me or hidden from us when we look at another person. But when we allow our hearts to sense the pain and the struggles of others and really spend time considering that and how that suffering that they carry causes pain to themselves and maybe to others, I think in doing so, that's an opportunity for compassion to arise in our own hearts. The mindfulness teacher Jack Kornfield suggests that reconciliation may ask us to listen to one another deeply. It may ask us to see each other with more mercy and tenderness. He says it may mean acknowledging the past and then starting anew. And in doing this, he says, we begin to build a bridge of tenderness to those who have been separated by pain and fear. And the Vietnamese Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh suggests that we all naturally desire and seek reconciliation, but it is feelings of anger and fear and desire that become an obstacle to it. A few days after the attacks on 9/11, Thich Nhat Hanh came to America to give a series of talks. He went to California and then to New York. And at Riverside Church in New York, he said this a few days after 9/11. In a relationship, if reconciliation seems to be difficult, it's not because the two people aren't willing to reconcile. It's because the amount of anger, fear, and suspicion in each person, or we could add in each country, is already too big. He went on, according to our experience of the practice, if we want to help someone reduce their fear, anger, and suspicion, you first have to practice yourself in order to reduce the amount of fear, anger, and suspicion in your own self. And then he ended by saying the first thing the people of the United States have to do is try to calm down and not allow the collective energy of anger and fear to carry them away. Today in America and in other parts of the world too, many people have experienced fear, anger, and suspicion. For us in the US, especially during this election cycle, and we're all pointing fingers at one another and blaming each other for our suffering. And while this is very understandable and really quite reasonable, because there has been much harm done, but yet to remain in this state will not lead toward healing the nation. If we want to move forward, if we want to live from a place of compassion and love, if we want to live in a more peaceful union, then I must train my mind and my heart to seek reconciliation within myself and toward everyone else, everyone, with no exceptions.